I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And today we're going to be talking about healing the anxious attachment style.
An extremely important topic. Before we begin, I did want to add that I am now available for coaching alongside Coach Craig and Coach Margaret. So if you'd like a one-on-one coaching with us, just go on the website, click on the top where our names are at, and book a session with us.
Very easy and simple to do, and we will help guide you through your situation because breakups are so confusing. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's probably so confusing is attachment styles.
Yeah.
You come to our channel and we're always talking about attachment styles and you're like, what is this? Mm-hmm. And you're going through this horrific, traumatic event. At the same time, you're hearing things about yourself that you probably have never even heard of before. Like, what is attachment theory? What does that have to do with relationships? What does that have to do with why my relationship fell apart? Did it have anything to do with my relationship falling apart? Yes, it probably did for a lot of different reasons. And so understanding attachment styles is absolutely critical in turning your relationships around and having healthier relationships. In fact, I have a whole playlist called Understanding Attachment Styles with hundreds and hundreds of videos in there. And so that is going to be my first point. How do we change? Can we change an anxious attachment style? Yes, you can heal your attachment issues. Unfortunately, it does take real work.
And time.
And as you guys have heard me tell my own story on here, I was going to Margaret several times a week to talk about my breakup years ago. And I was so devastated. And as I progressed and talked about things and healed, I started becoming more and more aware of how people love differently and how it all stems from how we loved as kids and even infants and babies and how we attach to our parents. So you can work on your attachment issues and get to a more secure, confident place, but there's no shortcuts for it. Honestly, there is none. And if you try to shortcut it, it's only going to wind up hurting you in the long run. Now, how can you do it? I have over 1,000 videos at this point that talk about it in almost every video at some point. Right. The Creative Healing course is absolutely amazing. Coach Victoria and I worked on it for a year during COVID.
There's a lot in it.
And you can check that out on the website. And also the workbooks. Even workbooks volumes 1 through 10 cover like 94 videos.
Yeah, it's a lot.
And so when I tell you guys Coach Victoria has been behind the scenes for years, she actually helped me develop the workbooks like over 4 years ago. Yeah. We started just the workbooks. So she's been here off camera learning all this stuff behind the scenes before she's been able to do coaching with you today.
Right, so there are a lot of resources out there with us, both educationally, books that we recommend, videos that you can watch. So there's a lot of educational tools out there that you can utilize to be more aware about attachment. And that's the exact first step, is education. Learning how attachment works, learning about how our early experiences affect our relationship. Then the second step is to identify those patterns in your own life. Mm-hmm. So the anxious attachment, it's created through inconsistent nurture. Mm-hmm. So this comes from very early childhood. And even actually on a behavioral therapy standpoint, I don't know if any of you have seen that video of the rat that is given food at inconsistent times and it goes chaotic. It's like hitting the little button to try to get food like crazy. Mm-hmm. And so I think the same thing happens in our own minds. When we as little babies, our parents give us inconsistent nurture, we don't know when to expect when we will be loved next, when we will be cared for next, fed, cuddled, cradled, all of those things. And so that creates over time an anxious way of attaching to people and of both giving and receiving that love.
Yep.
And so that's just some of the background of it. But if you can identify exactly what happened in your own life, so many of you might have even blocked some of this. It might be hard to remember, either because it was traumatic, either because it was really long ago, either because so much has happened in your life that it's too much to remember. So there's a lot of reasons as to why these memories are difficult to dig back up, but it's important that you do, to put the pieces together and see how those experiences impacted you.
It's so true. I often talk about like how I don't have a lot of memories in my childhood. And, as I've talked to Margaret about that over the years, we came to realize that when people are anxious, there's something that happens with the wiring in your brain that it just keeps you from remembering. Now, maybe that is a part survival mechanism, or maybe how traumas affect the brain, but read the comments all the time. You'll see below in a lot of the videos, people will say, boy, I have a lot of anxiety and I don't remember anything from my childhood. In fact, some of my childhood friends will say, hey, do you remember when you guys used to do this? Remember when we did this at the playground? I'm like, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm hearing these stories about me for the first time. I'm like, wow, tell me more about me. I don't even know this.
Yeah, and if you think about it, our bodies under stress function completely different than our bodies in a rested state. Our bodies under stress, there's cognitive symptoms, there's physical symptoms, there's emotional symptoms. So it can be a lot for a small child to handle, and even for an adult to handle.
Absolutely. So if you wonder, like, well, how did this happen to me? Like, my parents have been so loving, or I feel like they've always been there for me. Well, just because they are one way now in the present doesn't mean they were the same way in the past. Maybe they had to work a lot more. Maybe one of your parents had an issue that you weren't aware of. Maybe there was a postpartum depression. Maybe you had a sibling that required a lot more attention, that they had to be more inconsistent with you, or that they worked different hours, that they couldn't be there for you. Maybe that their own illnesses or mental health illnesses. And I think that if you have an anxious parent, you wind up with a lot of anxiety yourself. You kind of absorb it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's hard not to.
Yeah.
Especially if they're Italian.
Exactly. We would know, okay? My mom was very anxious, and I look back and I realize, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know where I got this from her. And it's so frustrating because you don't want it, but you have it, right?
Yep, exactly. And so it does affect your relationships. And this is what you want to look at next. How has your anxiety affected your relationships? So this is going to take a lot of introspection, a lot of reflection. That's why the workbooks, the course, all of these things can help you look at those important moments in your relationship where that anxiety may have come out. And so I would even do an exercise of just going through your relationship history and just doing a meditative exercise. Okay, what exactly happened throughout those relationships? How has my anxiety manifested? I think that would be very helpful. And it can manifest in many different ways. It can look like adding a lot of pressure to the relationship, maybe wanting commitment sooner than is healthy for you. Maybe it can be fear that your partner will cheat, abandon you, leave. And it can also look like you sacrificing your needs for your partner's needs. You will do just about anything so that they don't leave you. And that can be a detriment to yourself, especially when your needs aren't going met. So.
Absolutely. It can even come out in something as small as like fishing for compliments.
Yeah.
Right? Tell me something about myself. And you're like, but you know what? That keeps you out of really being present with the person and just enjoying their company and laughing and joking around when you're constant. Because chances are, if you're saying that, you're doing it often. Okay? It's not like it's once or twice, a month or something like that. It's probably like coming out in different forms that you're not even aware of. So I got a few questions here for you to think about, right? When do you notice your anxiety is at its highest? Think about it. Is there certain things that your partner does maybe that triggers it? Or your boss does? Or things in your life? you may notice a pattern of certain events, or it doesn't even have to be an event. It could be something internal, triggers the anxiety. Could be an abandonment fear. That's often a big one. Maybe if somebody has a complaint about you, you know, you've been doing this and that and this again, and you're like, no, don't leave me.
Yeah.
And you start defending yourself. And it's hard because you don't want them to abandon you. So instead of really hearing what they're saying, you're trying to defend it and explain it and justify it, so you're not perceived as doing something wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you feel when you're alone? That's a big one.
This is a big one.
Can you be alone?
Many people jump from relationship to relationship. And I think a lot of that can be a result of an anxious attachment style, difficulty sitting with yourself, managing your own emotions without somebody there holding your hand, and it's hard.
Yeah, it's a big one. You want to be okay with being alone. You don't have to like it, you don't have to love it, but if you can be okay with being alone, it makes a big difference. Okay, here's another big one. When you don't hear from your partner, how's your anxiety level?
Yeah.
Probably through the roof, right? It triggers a lot of people, but you have to be aware of it. Even though internally you may feel like you're dying, as long as you can behave in an attractive way, it helps.
Yeah,
It makes a big difference. Okay? So, in that sense, you can fake it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's much better to at least look attractive than to be blowing up your partner's phone and making them like, oh my gosh, this is too much.
And when you're able to manage those behaviors, then it gives you that confidence of, hey, I can do this. And that in turn makes you more secure. I didn't think that I would be able to handle this, but I can.
Yeah.
You can.
And here's another big one. Fear of being left, right? For someone else especially.
Yeah.
If you've been maybe cheated on, that could trigger you if your partner starts to do anything that might look like you're going to get left for somebody else.
Exactly. So you have to understand that where your anxiety is in relationships, they're all echoes of past experiences. So that's why it's so important to really dig into your past, dig into what you've lived through, what you've survived. And then the more aware that you are of your attachment, once you've identified where it comes from, once you're able to identify how it manifests in your relationship, then you can begin introducing new ways of relating. And this is the challenge, because you can have all of the awareness in the world, but if you are not changing and actively choosing change
And implementing.
That's
a big one.
Yes, then it's like sitting on all of this potential energy. So you want to make sure that you are making those choices, even if it's hard and it's going to be uncomfortable.
And, you know, I can't help but thinking about, like, you have to be able to implement these things when your ex comes back.
Yes.
And that is when it's very difficult. And that's why I tell you guys, if you focus only on no contact videos, you're not going to be ready for your ex and how to be a different person when they come back. You're not really going to be different. You're not going to really have grown. You're just going to be faking it and trying to lie and manipulate. Whether you realize it or not, I see it all the time.
Right.
And I had a call with somebody just yesterday who does that, and they're so deeply wounded and have so much anxiety, they don't even realize that everything they do is to manipulate. And I keep trying to get them to see that, but they don't see it yet. So you have to be understanding and aware that of what those weaknesses are, where you struggle, and how to implement the differences when they return. Every interaction with your ex is critical in trying to reattract them.
Right. And I think too, also being connected with yourself and your own emotions. If you can feel that your anxiety is creeping up, let's say you are getting anxious about not hearing from your ex. Let's say you see your ex out in public with somebody else. There's many different scenarios where your anxiety can come up and say, hello, I'm back. I'm here to to walk alongside you for a little bit.
I'm here to lash out at your ex for you and say, who was that? No.
Right. Don't do that. But once that happens, that's really where the active choice for change comes in, because you can be aware of it and you can also speak to it. I know Margaret talks a lot about this. She also talks a lot about that positive self-talk, that reassurance, self-reassurance. It's really important. And I think too, there's many different mantras that you can adopt that can help you through those most anxious times.
Yeah.
And a couple of those that have worked for myself personally and that I've heard have worked for others is just telling yourself, I am safe. I am safe. I am worthy of affection. And I am enough. I think for many of those who come from families that have a lot of issues, I think there's low self-esteem that's tied to it. And that can be one of the most challenging things when you don't feel like you deserve a healthy relationship, when you feel like you don't deserve something fulfilling, that connection and that attention from somebody else. And so I think working on those issues ultimately is going to bring you to that place where you're ready for a partnership, whether it be with your ex or somebody else.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we did in the creative healing course is we have, I don't even remember how many sets of affirmations.
A lot.
It was like 6 sets maybe of audio affirmations, different ones, where it was Coach Victoria. I mean, this was even way before she was on any videos.
Yeah.
There was some with Margaret, some of myself, and there's all different affirmations. I think that may have been one of the activities to really help you identify these things, because you have to be able to change it in real time. And that's one of the hardest things to do, is going from educating yourself and trying to be aware of it to being able to handle it in real time when it happens. But as you grow and as you heal, it will naturally start to happen more and more. You won't be walking into those traps that were setting you off before. Some things you might want to look for with your healing is your ability to accept reassurance. Maybe that's from a partner who tells you something reassuring, and instead of you saying, oh, I don't believe you. Or you're just saying that. You don't mean that. That's a big one. Looking at the ways your partner is there for you, instead of always focusing on when they're not there for you or when they've disappointed you, focusing on the positive aspects and things that they do right. Here's a big one. Being able to give space. Not everybody wants the same level of closeness as you, and it will fluctuate at different times during a relationship.
And their space isn't an indication of them not caring for you. I think a lot of people struggle with this like object permanence in a relationship. When the partner's not there, they feel like the partner doesn't care, the partner doesn't exist in their life. You have to remember that even though that partner's not engaging with you 24/7, their feelings are still there.
Yeah. Now, of course, it could mean that they don't care for you as much.
Right.
But oftentimes a lot of it is what a scenario in our own mind. I don't want people to be like, oh no, I know my ex. Well, okay, maybe your ex is the one that doesn't care. Okay, maybe you're the one. But a lot of it is internalized and catastrophizing and just making it worse. And another big thing you have to learn is how to resolve conflict better. Your needs, their needs, the relationship needs. All three are important. And they're not always going to be equal.
Right.
Sometimes it's going to be about your partner's needs. Sometimes it's going to be about yours. Yeah, you want to keep in mind that you have to keep a balance, which isn't always easy to do.
And I think one part of this that's really beautiful, the beautiful part of healing, is that now in your relationships, you can show up more authentically as yourself. And what I mean by this is now your behaviors in the relationship are not all focused or stemming from your trauma or stemming from the bad experiences you've had or caregivers who couldn't be present with you as a child. Now you're starting to show up as yourself. You can be more playful in the relationship. You can have more fun. You can accept that love and you can give that love a lot more freely. I think that's what's really beautiful. And at the same time, your relationship with yourself improves. That self-confidence, knowing exactly what your needs are, knowing what makes you feel safe in a relationship. So I think there's a lot of beauty that comes with healing, despite how hard and difficult and how emotionally challenging this process is.
And the bottom line is that it feels good. And you're going to be glad that you did it.
Yeah.
Okay? So stay focused on it. Don't just obsess about where your ex is at and what they're doing in the current moment, because that will change. But you ultimately want to grow in this time. That's the best thing you could do. Okay, hopefully you found this video helpful. Of course, if you want to get our help personally, you could do it on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is available for Skype coaching.
I'm excited to speak with you.
Just click on Victoria on the top of the website to get a call with her. And of course, Margaret is available too. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon. To get my help personally, go to AskCraig.net and click on Schedule Coaching and choose the option that works best for you. I do email coaching or Skype. To schedule a coaching with Margaret, click on Margaret on the top of the page and order a Skype with her. For the Knowledge Creative Healing course, click on the link at the top of the page and click Get Started Now.